Hello and welcome. You're watching Good Morning India. I'm Gargi Rawat. Thanks so much for tuning in. Coming up ahead, the worsening crisis in neighbouring Sri Lanka.
Good morning. I'm Priyanshi Gargi. The crisis surely is worsening, with the former Prime Minister also fleeing. And also in other stories, the centre to respond today on whether the sedition law can be paused and CBI's crackdown on NGOs and lots more. First, let's take a look at the headlines.
The Sri Lankan security forces have been ordered to shoot lawbreakers on sight in an attempt to stop the anti-government protests. Former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and family flee to a naval base.
3 people have been detained in the Mohali blast case. A Faridkot resident, Nishant Singh, is being questioned for providing the logistics to the attackers.
Will the sedition law be paused? The centre to respond to the Supreme Court's question today after the centre said they would re-examine the law.
And according to sources, the CBI has raided 40 places and 10 people, including 5 government officials, and have been detained for taking bribes from NGOs to facilitate foreign funds.
Cyclone Asani has changed course, will likely move along the east coast in Andhra before weakening. The IMD issues a red alert for coastal areas in Andhra Pradesh. All right, so let's now get you the latest from Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka on Tuesday said that those found damaging public property or harming others could be shot.
And this comes after a day of clashes that killed 7 people and injured more than 200 in a violence that prompted Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to resign.
As the nation battles its worst economic crisis in history, thousands of protesters had defied curfew to attack government figures, setting ablaze homes, shops and businesses belonging to ruling party lawmakers and provincial politicians. Mahinda Rajapaksa and family have had to flee, in fact, and took shelter in a naval base.
Just a day after resigning, Sri Lanka's former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family fled to a naval base in the northeast of the country to take shelter as violent protests shook the nation. Sources told NDTV that Rajapaksa and his family were flown in a helicopter to the naval base, which is 270 kilometers from the capital Colombo. Here, 2 protests have broken out. Since Monday, the homes of over 50 politicians belonging to the ruling party have been set on fire by angry protesters overnight. These are pictures from a mansion that is said to belong to another Rajapaksa, Basil, former minister, which was also set ablaze. The opposition, however, sees a conspiracy.
17 houses have been burnt, and all the houses have been evacuated. There have been nobody in these houses when they were burnt. No security given to these houses. So this is and a certain group of MPs' houses have been burnt. And well, there are 100 or more government MPs. Why have they been spared then? So this all looks very, very suspicious. Maybe this is all staged by the government itself. We are yet to find out.
5 people, including an MP, were killed in the violence that broke out on Monday when Mahinda Rajapaksa's supporters burst into the capital from the countryside, attacked protesters with sticks and clubs. For weeks now, there have been peaceful mass protests across the country, mostly led by young people and professionals against the Rajapaksas and the handling of the economy. There is a huge shortage of food, fuel, medicines and other essentials as a result of the crisis. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is still defiant and refusing to resign, while his brother Mahinda stepped down on Monday, but that has done little to calm public anger. Sri Lanka's main opposition party Samagi Jana Balawigaya or SJB today rejected the president's offer to form interim government under him. Instead, the SJB has demanded the president's resignation. As protests continued across the island nation, in one such instance, protesters had assaulted senior DIG in charge of the Western Province. demanding to know answers on who gave him the orders to assault the citizens. Mahinda Rajapaksa has stepped down as the Prime Minister. However, Sri Lanka continues to burn. Looks like the citizens of Sri Lanka is in no mood to stop, because they also demand that Gotabaya Rajapaksa steps down as the president. Now, the transition that they are looking at, how long is that going to be, is something, the hope that they are longing for. Srija for NDTV.
And Srija now joins us on the phone line from Colombo. Srija, what is the situation this morning? What are the reports coming in?
Well, at this point in time, we continue to see several people have taken out on the streets. In fact, they have been protesting in Galle, here in Colombo. They have come back after taking treatment at various hospitals after the clash between the pro-government and the anti-government right here in Galle. We continue to see several people holding placards, shouting slogans, and there is huge police presence. And we see the cops have, in fact, barricaded various arterial roads, and especially there's water cannons, vehicles that have been stationed at this point in time, various police vehicles that have been stationed at various vantage points to ensure that people don't breach and, especially vandalize public properties. Now, while saying so, we understand just about yesterday where the Defense Ministry had ordered, especially the Tri-Forces, to go ahead and shoot, especially those who plunder and vandalize public properties. Now, that is something that we have been witnessing in the island nation over the past 3 days, ever since Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned as the Prime Minister of the country. At this point in time, as we speak, of Sri Lanka, we continue to see protests. People, especially from the protest site where they were injured and they were taking treatment at various hospitals, have returned with their placards. They're shouting slogans. They're still demanding that it is not just about Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation, but they want the entire Rajapaksa clan and the regime to be gone. Now, as far as the latest from the police, that at least about 8 people have been killed in various clashes across the country, and over 250 people are undergoing treatment at various hospitals across Sri Lanka as well. Now, that apart, there were several rumors and also reports surfacing with in terms of where, especially Mahinda Rajapaksa, he was in fact, in a chopper, he was he and his family members were taken to the naval base. This is in Trincomalee, about 270 kilometers away from Colombo. And thereafter, there were reports about how, not just Mahinda Rajapaksa's family, but also especially other ruling party members were planning to leave for the neighboring country. But we see at this point in time, the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka has refuted as fake and blatantly false social media speculation that former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family members have fled to India. Also, the most important update is that the Speaker, at a time when we understand Mahinda Rajapaksa has stepped down as the Prime Minister of the country, now the cabinet stands dissolved. Now, what really next is the question, especially not just the citizens who want to know, but also mainly the opposition, the principal opposition here in Sri Lanka, the SJB, has been questioning. So we see that the Speaker had requested Gotabaya Rajapaksa to especially convene the parliament, but on a condition to ensure the safety of the ruling MPs.
All right, Srija, thanks so much for joining us with that. So still, a lot of confusion. As you can see, their protests, as Srija's telling us, continue. And rumours as well, Priyanshi, that, leaders may have fled to India, but India has given a statement.
Right. And along with that, India also gave a statement reiterating its stand on the crisis. It said, as a close neighbour of Sri Lanka with historical ties, India is fully supportive of its democracy, stability and economic recovery. In keeping with our neighbourhood first policy, policy, India has extended this year alone support worth over $3.5 billion to the people of Sri Lanka for helping them overcome their current difficulties. In addition, the people of India have provided assistance for mitigating the shortages of essential items such as food, medicine, etc. It also said that India will always be guided by the best interests of the people of Sri Lanka expressed through democratic processes.
All right, joining us for more on the situation in Sri Lanka, we have Rohan Samarajiva, a Sri Lankan policy analyst, and we have Shahama Raji, a Colombo resident. Thank you so much both for joining us this morning. And Rohan Samarajiva, first to you, what is the way out of this? If there's going to be a transition, how soon and what can we expect? Because right now there seems a lot of chaos, and even these shoot at sight orders, even despite that, there seem to be protests.
The way out is for Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign. That is to actually accede to the demands of the people of Sri Lanka. There are many discussions going on with the religious leaders, with political leadership about the transition. The opposition party actually has indicated that if Mr. Rajapaksa does step down, that means there are no Rajapaksas in the ruling cabinet. They are willing to take over their responsibilities. The question still remains whether they are capable of assembling the required, not just a majority, but a required, a larger, a more inclusive arrangement to deal with the present crisis. But plans are being made to assemble an inclusive and stable government. And I think the really good news is that despite the government's inaction or inability to act, the people and the ground level leadership is succeeding. Yesterday, there was an attempt to inflame communal passions, to create a Roman Catholic versus Muslim clash in the town of Negombo, because a hotel belonging to a ruling party politician who was Catholic by faith had been looted, which is extremely regrettable. The looting is completely unacceptable. But to then turn it into some kind of opportunity to create violence against Muslim businesses and Muslim people was completely stopped by the Catholic Church and the clergy working the streets, talking to the people and resolving the problem. So I think the spirit of peacefulness, peaceful protest and rejection of this communal passions by the protesters at Golface, that they held on for 30 days.
Right, that's quite heartening to know that you had religious leaders there ensuring that it didn't become some sort of communal clash.
Right, and also my next question to you, Ms. Shahama Raji, we want to know what the condition is like for the common people. We saw serpentine queues for natural gas and also for fuel. So how are you managing groceries and basic essentials at home?
Good morning. It has actually been extremely difficult for the common citizen, because during the morning hours we are at fuel queues or at gas queues trying to, we had to get children to school. We had to go about our daily work, and the natural gas is necessary for cooking. So our lives are at the moment from queue to queue to queue, right. Which has actually been extremely difficult. And also there have been shortages of food items and also shortages of medical necessities as well. And this is actually making the people very nervous. So you find people like three-wheeler drivers whose whole lives are about the hires they run. So during the morning hours, they are queuing up for fuel, maybe 2 to 3 to sometimes 4 hours. And sometimes at the end of the queue, you're told, oh, we're out of fuel. And at other times, we are at gas queues, I don't know, for maybe 5-6 hours, only to be told that there is no gas for cooking purposes, or kerosene for that matter. So it's really, really difficult. This is like the basic needs of the people things have just broken down.
Right, absolutely challenging. In fact, it's a humanitarian crisis in a sense. And Rohan Samara Jiva, you spoke about, transition, and that has to happen sooner than later to, resolve these issues for the citizens. Also, expectations from India. India has said that, they're a friend of Sri Lankan people and are ready to provide any sort of, medical needs, etc. and, are standing by. But what are your expectations?
We are very disappointed in the Speaker of Parliament. Because instead of convening Parliament, he has said that until the security of the MPs is assured, he is not willing to convene Parliament. People are putting on pressure that he should at least convene Parliament using Zoom technology. But if the people's lives are uncertain, I don't understand why the lives of the politicians, the elected members, should be given priority. So again, this is a case of the Rajapaksa regime and its behavior, which has been characterized by too little, too late, and in many cases wrong. I think that we need to resolve this quickly. Parliament has to take over the responsibilities of governing this country, which were taken away from it by the ill thought out and very 20th Amendment to the Constitution that was pushed through by the Rajapaksas in 2020. And in the case of India, we are very grateful. We would not be having fuel to move around without the assistance provided by India.
Right.
I think India has played the role of a good neighbor. However, it has to respect Sri Lanka's democratic processes. We have been a democratic country throughout, without interruption, despite all kinds of difficulties.
Right.
And I think the assurance that India has given that it is supporting democratic processes, democratic institutions, is extremely important in terms of keeping the military away.
Right. So India supporting its neighbor there, but a really distressing situation. We can only imagine what it's like waiting for 5 hours for your essentials. But thanks both of our guests for joining us on this show and giving us those ground insights.
All right. With that, time for us to slip into a short break. Coming up on the other side, Cyclone Asani to skirt the coast of Andhra Pradesh. We'll get you all the details. Welcome back. Now the latest from Punjab. An RPG attack on Punjab Police's intelligence wing headquarters in Mohali sparked serious security concerns for the border state. Now a few suspects have been taken into custody in connection with the blast.
And sources also tell NDTV that a Faridkot resident, Nishan Singh, has been detained. He allegedly provided logistical support to the attackers and is being questioned. Police sources said 2 others have also been detained in relation to the blast. Here's a report.
Shattered windows on the 3rd floor of the intelligence wing of the Punjab Police headquarters in Mohali. No one was wounded in the attack. But the use of a rocket-propelled grenade, a weapon used rarely by terrorists in India, raises several questions. Where did this weapon come from? Pakistan, or in fact from Afghanistan, where it has been used by the Taliban for decades?
जिन्हें भी पंजाब दा माहौल खराब करने दी कोशिश की थी, वो बख्शिया नहीं जाऊगा, सख्त तो सख्त सजा मिलेगी.
The state government, which initially denied that this was a terror attack, says it has suspects in custody.
प्रोजेक्टाइल ने हिट किया है और उसमें जो एक्सप्लोजिव इस्तेमाल हुआ है वो TNT लग रहा है और हम इसको इस केस को सॉल्व करने के लिए पूरे कोशिश कर रहे हैं और जल्दी सॉल्व करें.
The attack happened just 3 days after the arrest of 4 suspected terrorists with improvised explosive devices in Karnal in Haryana, and nearly 2 weeks after an explosive device was found near Burel Jail in Chandigarh. There have been 3 similar attacks on police and army establishments in the state in the last 6 months. A grenade was hurled at a police station in Nawashehr on the 7th of November last year. Another grenade was thrown by motorcycle-borne assailants near the army's cantonment in Pathankot on the 21st of November. On the 9th of March 2022, the police post in Ropar on the Nurpur Bedi Nangal road was attacked, damaging its side wall. No one was injured in all these three attacks. The attack has created a political storm, with the opposition hitting out at the Aam Aadmi Party government for the deteriorating law and order situation in Punjab.
I urge the Honourable Home Minister Shri Amit Shah ji to intervene, depute central investigative security agencies, because clearly Aam Aadmi Party, the government, is incompetent, incapable to handle the law and order situation in Punjab and to investigate this matter seriously.
Pakistan-based terror groups have been pushing drugs, arms and ammunition through drones into Punjab through the international border. But many a times, BSF and Punjab police have thwarted their attempts. But an RPG attack on the State Intelligence Department headquarters here in Mohali is a big challenge for the state police. In Mohali, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
And news now from Jammu and Kashmir. Separatist leader from Jammu and Kashmir, Yasin Malik, pleaded guilty before the NIA court on Tuesday in a terror funding case. The JKLF leader told the court in Delhi that he was not contesting charges levelled against him.
Recently, the court had ordered the framing of charges against several separatist leaders, including Yasin Malik, under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and IPC. On May 19, the court will hear arguments on the quantum of the sentence under which Malik may face life imprisonment. Now, the other big story we're focusing on today, the Supreme Court yesterday had asked the government to reply by today on whether the sedition law can be paused and people charged under it can be protected while the colonial era law is being reviewed.
And Gargi, this comes a day after the government sought more time to respond to petitions challenging the sedition law. The Supreme Court expressed concern about those already facing sedition charges, and the Supreme Court will hear the matter today.
In a significant move that could bring the stringent sedition law to a standstill, the Supreme Court has proposed to the centre that it should put all pending as well as future cases of sedition on hold until it finishes the re-examination of the law. The Supreme Court has asked the centre to respond on this by tomorrow.
Responding to the centre's U-turn, saying the PM was in favour of dropping archaic colonial era laws, the Supreme Court said, "We cannot give unreasonable time for examining the law. Consider putting the law in abeyance till re-examination is over. We need to protect the interest of people who are already booked under sedition law as well as future cases. There are concerns about pending cases and misuse. The Attorney General himself had mentioned how a sedition case was filed in Maharashtra for reciting Hanuman Chalisa. The CJI asked the centre, "Your affidavit says civil liberties, but how will you protect those? Can someone stay in jail for months?" The centre, on the other hand, defended the sedition law, saying that FIRs of sedition are filed by states, not centre. Incidents of misuse get addressed on case-to-case basis. Courts intervene when misuse takes place. A 3-judge bench led by the Chief Justice of India was hearing a batch of pleas, including those filed by Editors Guild of India, TMC MP Mahua Moitra and former Major General S.G. Vombadkar. Their lawyers asked the court to put the law on hold till the re-examination process is over. The lawyers said that arrests for sedition are taking place daily. Disaffection of government is also treated as an act against the nation. Centre has a pattern of stalling critical issues. It did the same during cases on right to privacy as well as marital rape. Between 2015 to 2020, there have been sedition cases against 548 people, but only 12 have been convicted so far.
With hundreds of sedition cases lodged across the country, all eyes will be on the central government's response tomorrow on whether it will finally put a pause on the law that it has so strongly defended so far. In New Delhi with camera person Pawan Kumar, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
And now shifting focus to an issue that hurts us all, from ease of living to now cost of living. Rising food inflation is hurting the common man, and it's not just fuel prices rising that gain the most attention, Gargi, but prices across commodities are rising.
And that's the big story, in fact, that everyone should be focusing on: how rising inflation is impacting household budgets. From wheat, rice, edible oil and even soaps, all essential items are at an all-time high. Here's a report.
Rice, atta, wheat, edible oil and even essentials like soap and instant noodles. everything is much more expensive than it was a month ago. Edible oil has touched record high prices, pushing household budgets up significantly. Sanjay Salunkhe, a salaried professional, says his monthly budget for groceries for his family of 5 has shot up by around 25%.
जो हम लोग का मंथली बजट जाता था उससे भी अभी हाई बजट जा रहा है। डीजल के भाव दिन में दिन बढ़ते जा रहे हैं और उसके वजह से भी जो खाने पीने की जो चीज़ें हैं, मतलब गेहूँ है, आटा है, मतलब कुछ जो ऑयल हम लोग लेते हैं पर्टिकुलर, तो उसमें जो कीमतें दिन ब दिन बढ़ती जा रही है, उसके वजह से जो मिडिल क्लास लोग हैं उनको बहुत तकलीफ हो रही है। कम से कम 1,500 से 2,000 रुपये तक बढ़ते हो रहे हैं। मतलब पहले मैं मंथली सामान भरता था, वो मेरा 3,000 साढ़े 3,000 में हो सकता था।
Wheat and atta prices have jumped to rupees 35 or by 25% a kilo, while slightly better quality basmati rice has touched rupees 100 a kilo, up 40%. But it's edible oil that's seen the sharpest increase. Even prices of soap and instant noodles have seen the impact of inflation. Shopkeepers say that the sharpest increase in prices came 2 weeks ago. Even FMCG brands have increased prices of daily use items like soap.
गेहूँ है, चावल है, बासमती चावल है, ऑयल है, ये सब रेट तो बढ़ते ही जा रहे हैं, कम होने का कोई नाम नहीं। अभी जो पाम तेल का प्रॉब्लम हुआ है, बाहर से अब तेल आता था वो बंद हो गया, तो यहाँ पाम तेल के रेट भी बहुत सारे बढ़े हुए हैं।
Inflation has been a massive concern for the RBI, and it's food inflation that's really pushing the inflation limits, and that's something that is pinching the common man. Now, obviously, the RBI has taken steps, but is that enough? If you speak to customers at Kirana stores, they say no. With camera person Sanjay Mandal, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
All right, rising prices, they're hurting the common man. Well, with that, time for us to slip into a short break. I've had all the latest from the IPL as we're nearing the finals.
And Gujarat Titans is the first team to seal their place in the playoffs by defeating Lucknow Super Giants. All the highlights coming up.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Good Morning India, and now let's start with the situation in Sri Lanka. Now, Sri Lanka on Tuesday said that those found damaging public property or harming others would be shot. This after a day of clashes that killed 8 people and injured 250 in violence that prompted Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to resign as the nation battles its worst economic crisis in history. Thousands of protesters had defied curfew to attack government figures, setting ablaze homes, shops and businesses belonging to ruling party lawmakers and provincial politicians. Mahinda Rajapaksa and family had to flee and take shelter in a naval base. Well, let's go across to Shrija now for more. And Shrija, NDTV's Shrija joins us from Sri Lanka. Shrija, what is the situation this morning? And a very serious, this declaration of a shoot at sight to anyone seen damaging public property.
Well, we are Gaul. We are in front of, police and also army people who have been posted, including the special task force. Now, they have lined up barricades to ensure that they don't, especially the protesters, the anti-government protesters, they don't breach those barricades and damage public properties. Now, that is what we are witnessing right now at the moment. There are, several water cannon vehicles that have been stationed, a number of police vans also. So that is the number of forces that are on ground to ensure that the protest does not turn violent. But in terms of especially various properties of especially MPs, ministers and government working body members, they have been completely damaged and also burnt down. From our inside sources is that one of the major reasons for the anger behind, especially of the protesters, to barge into these properties and damage them is also because most of the ministers, allegedly, especially leaders, had apparently stockpiled on various essentials, and also at a time when the country is reeling under deep economic distress, when we are continuing to see people, especially waiting in long serpentine queues, whether that is for the cooking gas or even for that matter, fuel, petrol or diesel. Several of the leaders had stockpiled in their various residences. So this is what we are hearing, especially from our inside sources. One of the reasons behind the anger of the protesters, to barge into these residences and properties to completely vandalize them. Now, that apart, we understand just after these entire protests intensified across the island nation, immediately we went on to see how the police, especially the Sri Lankan police, immediately declared an island-wide curfew. Now, that's been extended for over 2 days, which means the extension now remains active till Thursday, 7 a.m. in the morning. Now, this means people are not allowed to step out at a time when there is a shortage of essentials and also cooking gas as well. Now, as far as the protests on ground, yes, they are continuing as, this is something which especially the protesters had decided. Several of the protesters, what we are, seeing at the moment at Galle here in Colombo, this is the epicenter where we witnessed several of the pro-government protesters had barged into this particular place, which is the Gota Gogama, named by the anti-government protesters. They had them injured grievously, some of them undergoing treatment at various hospitals. Now They have returned to this very spot. They are continuing with the protest, but the major point still remains. Even after Mahinda Rajapaksa has stepped down as the Prime Minister, what next? According to the protesters, they say that they want the entire Rajapaksa's clan or the administration to be gone and that a new government to be formed.
All right, Shrija, they're reporting from Sri Lanka on the latest on the situation there. Now, let's talk about what India has said so far on the crisis. India's statement on the crisis is, as a close neighbor of Sri Lanka with historical ties, India is fully supportive of its democracy, stability and economic recovery. In keeping with our neighborhood first policy, India has extended this year alone support worth over $3.5 billion to the people of Sri Lanka for helping them overcome their current difficulties. In addition, the people of India have provided assistance for mitigating the shortages of essential items such as food and medicine. India will always be guided by the best interests of the people of Sri Lanka expressed through democratic processes. The Indian High Commission also tweeted that it had recently noticed there were rumors circulating in sections of the media and social media there that certain political persons and their families had fled to India, that these are fake and blatantly false reports devoid of any truth or substance. Well, let's just listen in to what one Colombo resident had to tell us about the difficulties that the common man is currently facing there.
Our lives are at the moment, from queue to queue to queue. Which has actually been extremely difficult. And also there have been shortages of food items and also shortages of medical necessities as well. And this is actually making the people very nervous. So you find people like three-wheeler drivers whose whole lives are about the hires they run. So during the morning hours, they are queuing up for fuel, maybe 2 to 3 to sometimes 4 hours. And sometimes at the end of the queue, you're told, oh, we're out of fuel.
Well, joining us for more on the situation there, we have with us Muqaddasa Wahid, a freelance journalist and youth activist, and Graham Overland, a digital media business owner. Thank you so much for joining us. And Graham, if you could first tell us, what is the situation now? There's talk of transition, but there doesn't seem to be clarity on how long this would take. And for the moment, too much uncertainty in Sri Lanka.
Exactly. So I think it's important to also distinguish between the type of protest that has been almost like a blueprint for peaceful protests, a clear demonstration over the last month, which has unfortunately been hijacked, and I would say by certain factions. And as a result, you can see what has happened over the last 3 days, the need for emergency law, the need for curfew. It is actually a sad state, particularly because we have, the country is facing so many economic challenges, as you pointed out, from medicine, from inflation. The food group inflation is at 29%. We've had queues for fuel, for gas, shortages. So all of this is sort of built up into what has been a tipping point. And I think that the extraordinary attack on the peaceful protesters by certain factions of the public who, I don't know if it was in their interest, I don't know if it's pro-government, I don't want to comment on things like that because I don't have the fact. But the fact of the matter is that it was very disruptive and not representative of the majority of the Sri Lankan people who have really been, tirelessly fostering peaceful change. And we've had some incredible results through these peaceful demonstrations. We've had incredible racial harmony like we've not seen before. And although the pictures of, buses overturned, houses are burning, and they're terrible pictures and they're factual. But the fact of the matter is this is pockets of retaliation by people who have, vested interests. Perhaps even I would go so far as to say they're trying to cause racial disharmony. And you can't push racial narrative anymore. It is being done and dusted in Sri Lanka. People are now wise. People are together. Last month, the month of April, we saw in the holy month of Ramadan, the Easter, the Sinhalese and Tamil New Year. People came together. They sat, they ate, they drank, they broke fast. So there's lots to be positive about. I just need to bring that into this context.
Right. It's nice to hear you talking about, things to be positive about and people really coming together. Mukaddasa, if you could also tell us, what is your view? Tell us what you're hearing on the ground. Things somewhat normalized this morning, at least, even though we are hearing that protests are continuing. There's talk of how Parliament should convene, but the Speaker wants first that all MPs and all leaders should be safe?
Yeah, so actually things on like in the protests, people are still protesting despite the curfew and despite the state of emergency. And even though, we saw some sort of violence 2 days ago, things have considerably calmed down in terms of, people being violent. Because whatever happened that day is seen as something that was a result of what happened to the peaceful protesters at Temple Trees and at Gota Gogama. And people do want, not just people, even professionals also want the parliament to reconvene immediately as possible, because since the Prime Minister has resigned. Now we don't have a Prime Minister and we don't have a cabinet of ministers, because as the Prime Minister has resigned, the cabinet stands dissolved, and currently we don't have either the Prime Minister or the cabinet, so which leads to a dangerous situation in the political landscape of Sri Lanka. So that is why everyone is calling for the parliament to reconvene. But sadly, last night there was supposed to be a party leaders meeting today, but because the Speaker says that the security of the parliamentarians are threatened, they are not holding this party leaders meeting today, and even though there have been calls for virtual meeting to happen. So Gargi, currently what I would like to say is Sri Lanka, even though people are still undergoing this crisis and there hasn't been any solution, and not all of people's demands have been heard, only one demand, which is the Prime Minister to resign, has been heard, and even that happened after so much of violence. People are currently calming down and things are not as bad as it was 2 days ago.
All right, so that's some good news. So, Graham Overland, so clearly right now there's a need of the hour is for the politicians to get together, for Parliament to be convened, some sort of, leadership in this vacuum that is now there in this uncertainty.
Absolutely, Gagi. There's a massive appetite for leadership and calm. Because I think, we've been through these struggles before. If you look at the history of this country, and I don't want to delve into that, our brand is crisis. We have managed, we have, come through a lot of hardships. So finally, we're on, I would say, the tipping point of something that's really positive. And our search for proper leaders, people who are, who merit, the positions, who are technically capable of running this country, we should invite them. They're the people who should come in and do that.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining us on the program this morning, and all the best. Hopefully today will bring some more positive developments. And with that, time for us to slip into a short break. We'll continue to focus on Sri Lanka in the course of the day, but for the moment, let's slip into a short break and more news on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. News now from Telangana. And a former TDP minister, Narayana, has been held for a Class 10 paper leak. But the TDP has now lashed out and called it vindictive action. Let's go across to Uma for more. Uma, what are the details? And this former minister has been blamed in this paper leak case.
Gargi, the arrest took place in Telangana, Hyderabad, Telangana, but he was taken to Chittoor in Andhra Pradesh, where in fact the case has been booked. And what the case was about the leakage of a Class 10 paper, which is Telugu paper, on the 27th of April. It's called SSC here, the state board, and subsequently as many as 69 people, including more than about 45 teachers, about 36 government teachers, were arrested in fact as part of this this action that was carried out by the Andhra Pradesh police. But very dramatic that Mr. Narayana was arrested because he happens to be the founder of the Narayana Group of Educational Institutions. He's an education baron, I must say. There are institutions all over the country and the state, of course, both the Telugu states, that these institutions have been having a leadership role in what are called as corporate schools and colleges. But importantly, what they have said is that in the leakage of the Telugu paper on that particular day, many people were involved and there is a conspiracy involved, and they say based on the statement of one of those people who was arrested in the case, on that basis they have arrested Mr. Narayana, who happens to be of course a former minister, municipal administration minister of the Telugu Desam. But very significantly, there are three cases that happened. One, of course, is the arrest of this minister. Second is the booking of an FIR against Chandrababu Naidu and Narayana and Heritage Foods, which happens to be a company that belongs to Chandrababu Naidu. All of that in a case of cheating related to the Amravati capital that they had planned in that place. At that time, Narayana was, of course, the municipal administration minister and also heading a committee that was looking into the capital area, regional development authority, as a vice chairman. And in that case, they are saying that the master plan was made in such a way that certain individuals benefited and the exchequer had been harmed, or it lost money because of that. The third important case, because this is also very, very politically loaded. Of course, Mr. Narayana is considered as money bags. I must point out that the TDP has in fact called this as vindictive arrest and said that political leaders of the Telugu Desam are being targeted by the YSRCP. But the YSRCP is saying that in both these cases, we have justification for registering the case, first by the police in Chittoor district, Andhra Pradesh police, and second by the CID. And the third case that they point out is of the arrest of Mr. Jagan Mohan Reddy's cousin, Mr. Konda Reddy, who happens to be from Kadapa district, and there were allegations that he had threatened certain builders there and asked for money. There was case of extortion and threats, and in that case the chief minister had ordered a probe, and subsequently he was arrested and now taken to Rayachoti jail. So the government, in fact, from its part, saying that law is equal for everyone and everyone is equal before the law, and that's why all these particular actions have taken place. Back to you.
All right, Uma, thanks so much for joining us with those details. So that's the big political story now coming out of Telangana. And staying with news from Hyderabad, abandoned at birth and raised in a hospital, conjoined twins Veena and Vani from Hyderabad have now defied the odds and are taking their Class 12th examinations.
Class 12 exam, matter of great tension for students as well as families. I have with me Veena and Vani and Veena actually. And these are children who NDTV's viewers have known for several years, and they appeared for their English exam today. How did the exam go?
Very well.
Okay, very well. You are well prepared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. These are children who the intermediate board has given special permission to write in a separate center where they can actually get special facilities, but I believe that they do not want any special facilities, and the invigilator here in fact had told us that they did not even ask for special time.
Yes, ma'am. Before 5 minutes only they have completed today's exam, ma'am.
Oh, okay. One would have thought it would be very difficult for them to write, because at the same time both of them can't be facing down. So how do you manage to finish on time?
You write very fast.
You write fast?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about you? How did your exam go? And you did not need any extra time either?
No,
You didn't need any extra time?
I did not need.
Okay. How do they prepare, these children? They are also been now actually affiliated to a new, to the regular college.
Even though they are not regular to college, here we gave vigorous practice. Even writing and explanation, even writing practice also we gave time. We gave a question and I asked them to note the time. Within how many minutes you are going to complete. If it is not suitable or anything, I told them to practice more and more. Whatever I told, they listened and they practiced. So because of the more practice, vigorous practice, they could complete within time.
Okay. Veena and Vani, what do you want to do next? Go to college? What are you planning to do after class 12?
Our ambition is to become a CA. So, next intermediate we have to take foundation course to chartered accountant.
Both of you have the same ambition?
Yes.
Okay. Both of you are very competitive with each other, or do you help each other during exams when the invigilator is not looking?
No, we are competitive to each other and we don't talk to each other during the exam.
Okay, but you help each other before while studying and all that?
Yes.
Okay. I must also show around that this is a place where, in fact, a lot of artwork that the children have done, beautiful artwork, in fact, that they have, that these talented children have done, who have put in a lot of hard work and preparing for 3 more exams. What more exams are left now?
Civics, economics and commerce are left.
Okay. So, wishing Veena and Vani the best in Hyderabad with camera person Nagraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.